Hi everybody, welcome back. Now, in order for us to make our app do something, we would want the user to be able to create his own task. To do so, we would want to add a button at the very bottom of our app which says New Task. And when the user clicks on it, he should be able to add a task. Now, if we want anything to display at the very bottom, we would generally want to use a toolbar. So let's use an Ion toolbar directive, and we want the position to be bottom. This tells Ionic that I want the user to see a toolbar at the very bottom of my app. Now inside the toolbar, we would add a button that the user will be able to click. So let's say button and then add the click directive, so the user should execute this function when he clicks on it. And now close it, and there you go. And we want the button to say new item. Now let's serve up our app and see what we got. Okay, great. Now I want to make the button a bit smaller, so I would use the keyword small. Now this will tell Ionic that I want a smaller button. Okay, looks nice. Now we want to remove these items that we had added by default, and we want the user to be able to add his own items. So let's do that. In order to remove those, we would just remove these items from inside the array. Now as we can see that there are no more items. Now we want the user to be able to create his own items when he clicks the button. To do so, we would like the user to see a second page where he can fill out the item's information, and then we will display that on the first page. In order for us to use multiple pages, we would want to import the nav controller in our home.js. As you can see, I've already done that. The next thing we would want to do is import the second file into our home.js. But first, we need to create the second file. As you can see, these both files are empty. For simplicity's sake, we would just copy everything inside home.html and paste it here and remove everything in the toolbar and everything in the content. And also rename this page to add item. We will also want to copy everything from the home.js and paste it to add item.js and change everything where it says home to add item. And here we would also change it to add item and remove this .item since we will not be needing this right now. Now, we want to import the second page in our first JavaScript file so we can send the user to the second page. To do so, if you remember in our previous tutorial, we would just import add item from the path. Now the path should be add item, add item. Now when the user would want to click on the button, since we want to display a new page, we would want to instantiate the navigation controller. So let's do that. First, we would want our constructor to get it, and then we would instantiate inside the constructor. And let's add a method called add item, where the user will be able to see another page. We would want to use this .nav.push, and we would pass in the page, which is add item. As we can see now that when the user clicks the new item button, he is navigated to a new page. Now let's code this new page so the user can add a task. To do so, we will go to add item.html, and we would want to add an input box here so the user can enter his task, and a button so that the user can save his task. To enter an input box, we would want to enter it inside an item directive so it is placed properly. So let's add an Ion item directive. The next thing we would want to do is use Ion input directive so the user can enter an input. We want the user to see a placeholder when he enters nothing, saying add a task. Now let's see what we got. As you can see here, we have created an input box which lets the user enter a text, but it does nothing since we have not yet coded the function to save the task in our task list. To do so, we would want to add a button first so that the user can click that and save it. So let's do that and then create a button and then add the click to call a method save and then close this button. Now we will want to save the user's input inside a variable, which the save method will go and save. To do so, we will use the AngularJS directive ngModel. To write ngModel, we would put square brackets and then parentheses and then write ngModel and then equal this to any variable that we want. So let's say this one is created item. Now let's see what we got. Oops, we forgot to say anything on the button. So let's say save. And let's make this button a bit smaller also. And now let's see what we got. Okay, good. Now we have a button which saves the task. But since we have not yet coded the save method, it will still not do anything.